welcome to Facehammer Worldwide. Interview number 2 with, some would say, the support actor Richie, James Tinsdale from the Just Play crew.
Very accurate.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we basically had him on first because we knew that basically he knows what he's talking about, and you could come on later.
Plus, then I won't be able to copy anything and repeat it.
This is what happens when you talk to your friends. So
if Richie was Coldplay, what's Tinsdale?
I've got no idea about this music, man. It's like...
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying it. I'm not saying stuff. It's like, so if Richie was Coldplay, Tinsdale can be someone like, I don't know. He's like a hipster band. Boyzone, yeah.
Elbow, is that a band?
Boys to Men.
Elbow, that'll do.
Elbow, yeah, Elbow is a band, yeah. It's one of them indie bands that people like, not me.
Right, okay, so thanks for coming on, James, as you're sort of sweeping around and getting ready. So we thought we'd have you on to talk about Kharadron Overlords, but Richie's already covered all that. So no, I'm kidding. So just
he has though.
No, but well, there's different perspective on this stuff. So we'd like to talk to you a little bit. So do you want to give us a little bit of insight at who you are and why we're talking to you?
Why you started? Where you come from?
Yeah. I think one of the reasons you're talking to me is because you feel sorry for me. The other one is, with my named characters and my narrative armies. But I'm a war gamer like everybody else. I play at the Just Play Club with Richie, who you saw before. Richie and Ian also do the podcast, the Just Saying podcast as well. So sometimes I'm on that. So you might have heard my very high pitched voice before on that. You might think, where is that annoying sound coming from? That's where. I play at as many events as I can. I'm trying to do more team events because I really like the team dynamic aspect of AOS as well. And this right, and it goes into that, especially if you've got really flexible teammates. Obviously, not everybody has a big collection, so sometimes you're a bit confined to what they have. But so try and do more of those. Try and get up and down the country, play as much AOS as I can. Probably an AOS addict. I've got like 15 armies now, right? And I'm just about to do Kharadron Overlords. I'm doing my Bone Splitters currently. I'm also going to do my Lumineth before the end of the year. So I can't possibly play all of them. So
and
Kharadron are probably my favourite army, even since I started AOS. So it's nice to be able to talk about them. But my plan was always to, during lockdown, do Tzeentch and KO, with the Aether War box. But it never happened because I got so invested into my Tzeentch. I really underestimated how long it would take to do 200 plus model horrors to the level I wanted to do them at. Because once you've done the first 10, you think, that looks really nice. And then you think, wait a minute, I've got 190 to do and I've got them to the same standard.
It's that point, so as we're all 4 of us guys love painting, and all 4 of us like to be competitive, and then you realise that you can't be one and the other. Like if you have to make compromises somewhere. Which
I think as time goes on, I'm really, because now, maybe to where Terra was at, maybe a year ago or so, I look at a model now and I'm like, I really like to paint that, and I have no intention of playing it, but I'd really like to just paint that model because I love the model or the miniature and stuff. And sometimes now that's starting to distract me from gaming. Like some of the lists I write, I'm like, no, but I have to have this model in because I love this model. And I'm like, and I'm not, and I know that doesn't come across when I run 4 crawlers or I'm running back.
I really love that crawler model. That crawler model, wow.
That's one of my favourite models.
Just answer me this. Just answer me this. They've got all the crew on, right? Those crawlers.
Yeah, and they've all got names.
They've all got.
What bet they have? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah.
But it's nice. But also, it's also like a competitive challenge to go to an event, maybe to set yourself a target. I want to win 3 games. I want to win 4 games. Whatever your target is. For me, painting is I would like to enter an army in a painting competition and try and get a nod. There are armies that I see have taken people years that are so cleverly converted or painted with techniques I don't even understand. But I would like to be able to play filth, but in a way where I'm proud of my army. I've put a lot of time into it as well, so it's not just 3-color ready over the weekend sort of thing. And obviously with Tzeentch, as the summer went on, they got hit with 2 points changes, so I'm still persisting because obviously I had more models that I painted that now maybe don't fit in the list for balance reasons. But so my collection is even bigger than just the horrors I painted. And now I've added Be'lakor.
Of course you have. Of course you have.
So, because I love the model, the resin, the old resin cast Be'lakor, what a great model. I bought him purely for gaming reasons when I switched to the Blizzard as host. But again, he'll be a nice piece. Because my army is just horrors. So you look at my army, you think, it's one war scroll. You think, well, true. But I've got like a couple of other models now that can be sent at pieces for painting.
I can quite happily say that when people look at your army, that is not the thought that comes in their head. It's one war scroll. I think the thought that comes in their head is, we can't say that on radio. But
look at this guy with his gold rims and his filth.
Without sleeves. He thinks he's hot. Look at him. He's done a selfie.
He's going to take a selfie.
He's named all his horrors.
You know what? No one's ever said no to a selfie when I asked them. And then I say, can I show it on the line? They're like, no, go ahead. No one ever says, actually, no.
Next time you ask me.
I know. Yeah. Everyone's going to say, well, I haven't done it now. I didn't do it at Eggs. And I didn't do it before because Mr. Morton was saying to me that some people maybe feel like they have to do it because I asked them. You put people in a social situation where you're like, can I take a picture of your face? And they go, yeah. It's a bit... So I thought I've sort of reined off now, and now I just take pictures of the table.
I think as long as they don't know what you're doing with the picture, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they don't know what I do with it after. Like, they think it is on Twitter, but then afterwards there's a whole different collage, and, you can sell a lot.
He's got a picture on his wall, his hobby room of all the vanquished. He's got like red mark crosses through them all.
He's got a little wooden box that he keeps under his bed. And
what everyone doesn't know.
All these pictures between glass slides, just like in a.
Well, Mr. Stinker's got a list of all the monsters he wants to kill. I've got a list of every player in the UK, and I'm just crossing them off. Got that guy. Got that guy.
Bit of trouble crossing this one off, though, isn't there?
Oh,
snap! You knew that was coming.
I've only played Russ once and lost that as well. So, and I've never played Byron at an event. I've played Les. Les has beat me before.
I've watched you beat Les.
Is that good for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Terry was just soaking it in. He was like, "Yeah."
It was just
I'm a really good. I'm a really good loser as well, am I?
In the sky and.
All
right.
To be fair,
when it comes down.
That was like me and Sam Davis were going to go home early because I'd had enough of that blood and glory. But yeah, it's like, Tinsdale's got to experience both sides of me because apparently I'm a really bad winner, but I'm an even worse loser.
We've also been drawn at events where we're not on a level playing field. Like when I had you at Brotherhood, I was super favoured in a team event.
Yeah.
You made a game of it, but there's only so much you can do. At the Blood and Glory. Again, that KO were filth back then. So you had very few options. So it was like either come down and go for it or you just shoot you off anyway. We did have one with the Deepkin and the Nurgle. I think was it a Facehammer a couple of years ago?
No, that was Eggs, wasn't it? When I turned up late for Eggs.
That was probably the most even game and it came down to I think the last turn.
No, I played like a mug, didn't I? Like I come on with everything. I played like a mug in three places.
But that was probably the most even matchup we've had.
Yeah.
And obviously with Sylvan FF one was a whitewash because that was my first ever event.
I was clubbing seals then, wasn't I?
Yeah, I didn't even know that Sylvan had a book.
Yeah.
I was just pushing my goal kick forward because that's what you do in the shop, don't you? And I was like, he's going to kill everything. And then he went, no, I'm just going to bring these 6 hunters out of this wood. And I was like, what do they do? And he was like, I'll show you. And then Durfu did like 36 damage.
Yeah, that was it. It's like, how much did he do? Like 36. Make those 6 saves.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Big D. Back in the day. Taking names.
So that's me.
That's you, Big D. Right, okay.
That's me.
So you haven't been playing OS that long then, compared to some of us on this?
No.
Did you get to about the same time as Richie, or was it a bit after?
Just before, but about 2.5 years. Because I done it in the summer, and I think Richie's first event was the January heat with his KO after, because he went on his own, because we didn't really know each other then. And I started playing in Just Play Store just after that. So, about 2.5 years. 2 seasons in tournament scene. And a good year of that is just, you meet an overwhelming amount of people. You know when you're not remotely familiar with the community, you haven't played Fantasy Battle, you don't know anybody. The first time you go to an event and everyone's so welcoming and everyone He's just happy to talk hobby, and even when they're not, they have a beer afterwards. They're talking about football and whatever they're into. There's just so many like-minded people. You can just end up. I think in the first year, I wouldn't be interested to see. I reckon you meet 100 people that you regularly would talk to.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
Like just at events, you would meet these people. You'd happily talk to them. You get on really well. So there's a lot of people when you come into the scene or the hobby that go to just these events, and that's not including like the 100,000 that just come whatever community or play in their own bubble or with their own hobby. These are just the tournament people. So 2.5 years I've been playing.
Yeah, and obviously, just for the hobby journey, then where did you kind of start, and what's your kind of you sort of touched on the armies you've played, but you played a lot of Deepkin and things like that. So we were having quite an interesting chat with Richie where we were talking about the motivation between the armies that you play, and I was saying that he started doing Sylvaneth from a gaming point of view. It's
a tough year for me that when he did that. I asked him to reconsider because I got a practice against a 1-drop -1 to hit army every week, and that was. I think it made me better at the game.
Yeah.
But it was horrific, especially when you added the bird, the Frost Phoenix with the 1-up save.
So
loved that. Can't play that enough. Yeah, loved that. Yeah, when you can't even hurt it. Have you got Rend? No.
But Richie said he doesn't like allies, so it's fine.
No, of course.
No.
And that is his official line until he sees the War Scroll.
I don't like
really
allies until the War Scroll gets me.
Yeah, I'm like, so what was Aetherwings doing in your army, Richie? Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, they're actually quite good. I'm like, yeah, I know.
So what I was going to ask you is, where do you approach collecting of an army? Is there a gaming element, or is it model first, gaming second, or is it a bit of both? Or
so it's always models first. I know that sounds silly considering the lists I run, but it is because when I first went into the Warhammer shop, my first time especially at courts, I loved the ghouls, I loved the narrative of the delusion around them. I love the theme of the army. I was never obviously running any competitive lists at that point, but I still had loads of fun playing my army. I still have my army that I'm repainting as Morgaunt, and I'd run a similar list like I did to the Shires. Again, tough list, but because I just love the ghouls. So that is one. But I think over time there are certain times when like the Masters that I've yet to attend, or a big event where I'm like the competitive element in me, and I think this stems from having a competitive club as well. When you go to the Just Play club, like JP, Richie, Ian, they're bringing hard lists. And if you want to play more than a turn or two, you need to bring a decent list. So I think it's evolved into, there are times when I love the models and I would collect an army for the models, to a couple of armies, namely Tzeentch, that I would do for gaming reasons because I enjoy competing as hard as I can in certain events. I don't think I would take, I'll say this to Richie, I don't think I would take the as host to the Just Play event. I could do, but I think the gaming experience you get from that, given the audience at the event, I could achieve the same result with maybe a KO list or a caller list. I could still go 4-1, for instance, right, with all these other lists. Duplicit as host isn't nailed on like anything for 5-0. So, but we both would have taken Tzeentch to the Masters because the aim at the Masters is 16 players is to win. So that's where our Tzeentch armies were going to go. Obviously, that's come and gone now. That's never happened. So now I'm just stuck with a massive Tzeentch horde that I will play, but you have to sort of weigh it up because it's very stressful playing the as host. You don't kill anything, and you just take models off to then be killed the next turn. You're just replacing tokens all game. Maybe you cast a few spells, you enjoy that a little bit, and then you cast Infernal Gateway, maybe you kill a support hero, maybe you kill a Liberator, and then you carry on. But yeah, I think predominantly models first, because I think you have to, because most people aren't like me. They're not like an addict where they'll buy every army. They'll buy an army they like because of the models they like, and they'll try and find the hardest lists within it if they want to compete, or they'll just play the army they have, which I think is a really healthy way to go.
Yeah, so what about Kharadron Overlords then? So you've got a list you've settled on, or are you still?
We got loads of lists. So this is probably an evolution of so me and Richie for the last 2 or 3 months, because I wanted to do my KO in lockdown, and me and Richie have been talking about KO lists for ages. Ever since the book came out, everyone, people don't know this, but when we were in the Faithful chat, I always wanted to do KO. I went on the Warhammer TV, did the show, and the plan was to do it after that. But then I got sidetracked with Tzeentch during lockdown, and that took me way longer than it should have done because my daughter's arrived now, and it is hard to have the same time to commit to painting. You know, you can't just sit down for 4 hours and work on a unit that you really know needs weathering, needs blending, needs all these things you need to do to it. You've actually got 30 minutes, so you just paint the armour and wash it. So Kharadron Overlords was my second army back when the first came out. You know, so after Effect, I did Kharadron Overlords. And the book came out, and I loved I loved the models. I had no idea of the rules when you see the models, obviously. And at that point, I wasn't really playing super competitive. But by the time I got the army, it was the Clown Car, Zilfin, Mega Drop list. You know, so I played that for a little bit, and I played Mr. Carmichael at it, and I played Les with it at Blood and Glory. But there's only so much run you have in that. And then when I listened to your cast at the time, you were getting into KO. And you weren't sure about playing the Clown Car, and then you made up this story about all these creative lists you had, and then actually rocked up the Clown Car, which I thought was amusing because that's exactly what I would do. And then you got off it as well. I just thought, I'll wait for the next book. Yeah, I've still got the models. And then when the book came out, I reordered the whole army because I wanted to repaint it again. Because now my painting's improved. I was like, I want to do a different scheme, try some different stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing right now, and that's with the Kharadron Overlords. But what attracts me to Kharadron Overlords is just the models first, always. Like, I know it's a hard army to play now, and I'd happily go 2 and 3 at an event with KO, you know, and not feel, I've got nothing out of that weekend, you know. Because I'm sure a lot of people think I'm sort of like a gamer where if it's not 5-0, I'm screaming in the car on the way home, and I'm phoning people up saying, check this rule for me, does you sure this how it works?
Man, I've had a call from you when you're
and you've had about 8 missed calls.
Why did I bother? Why did I pick AOS?
So there's that as well. But I think the Kharadron Overlords, if you were looking from the outside in, they're an army that's almost at odds with the rest of the game. They're very unique.
40k army, aren't they? Like, you know, almost.
Yeah, the mindset is very different, right? AOS wants you to be objective, you know, thinking about objectives, thinking about approach play, thinking about counter-reaction play. Kharadron Overlords really is like the student-shoot aggressor that doesn't ever want to be charged, but kind of needs to be on objectives. So it's like, what do you do? Because anyone who's played Kharadron Overlords knows when you get charged, it's bad.
Yeah.
That's when models start coming off. And by coming off, I mean you point to your side tray of guys in the boat and go, that guy's dead. Because they never on the table. But that's when it gets rough. So the Kharadron Overlords, I love the aesthetic. I love dwarves, if we can say that, Dwarden. I love the steampunk aesthetic. And I quite like the idea of the garrison rules and everything that goes with it. So I really just like the army. And I love Brock Grunson. I have him. I'm going to paint him. I am going to run him. Whether that's an event or not, I don't know. Because I'm very fortunate that I can play hard games at the club 3 or 4 times a week if I wanted to in my local area. I know not everyone has that. So when I talk about lists and I talk about stuff I'm going to play, a lot of stuff I play never sees an event because I play it in the shop a lot.
Yeah.
And my Bone Splitters army, I could play that 10 games and that'd never be an event, and people are like, oh, he's not running his Bone Splitters. But I'm like, I played it. People just don't see it because you're at your local club. So, so people don't even see that tournament side of you when you walk up to an event with a hard list. You think, oh, all I ever does is play hard lists. But I'll remind everybody. Look, last year I took Olinda, Kurdos, a black coach, a real one.
To one event.
To 2 events. A heat at the Warhammer World and eggs. And it didn't end well, did it? It didn't end well. But I had a great time playing my models.
Yeah, because that arm is really nice. I like the way you painted it with the glowing skulls. In fact, I borrowed that.
That scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a really awkward moment, though, when some guy's Gristlegore Dragon charged my black coach. And I was, because I'm ethereal, so I failed my saves. And he was like, oh, you're ethereal, what if I miss? And he rolled like 3 6s. And he was like, that's like 18 mortal wounds. And I was like, he was like, do you not get a death save? I was like, it's not a hero, mate. Just see you later. Just took it off. And he was like, oh, wow. I'm like,
Yeah. Don't you just love Gristlegore? Like, see
Maybe
JP in the
five
chat, you know
touchdowns.
exactly what I'm talking about. When I charged him with all the heals, he was like, roll 6s.
Yeah, I was like brutal. So but I really enjoyed playing that as well. So I've played lists like that as well. So, but Kharadron Overlords really good. The evolution of the lists me and Richie have been doing starts really with Iron Sky Attack Squadron because we feel it's the best way to play objectives with the army. To get out and get in after you've made a fly high or a move is really useful to the army, and a 3d6 charge is big as well. To get on to that last bit of the unit that you've shot, to get onto the objective, it can come up a lot in a game.
So we did on our show. We talked about, and I did a couple of lists, and one of them was a 1-drop, and I was sort of thinking how important is it to dictate the turn or to alpha with things like Marathi and Techless and things like that. Is the alpha strike more important, or do you think that it's more important to go like Iron Attack Squadron, have less drops, and because I don't know if you can do that and Iron Sky Command to get your concise dropped.
You can do. So when I saw your lists and stuff, I think the double battalion is definitely a way to go. I think it depends on your playstyle as well. If you really because I know Gary and some other guys love the 1-2 drop with the spell in the bottle with the Warp Lightning Vortex. You go in early, you go hard. So yeah, that's one style, and it definitely has results. The issue with that is, maybe we should discuss. We've been back and forth a lot on this, but you blow your Zilfin move to do it. You're all in on that. Your opponent, a good opponent, really should deploy better. You shouldn't be vortexing the whole army, really.
No.
And you're all in. If that doesn't work, and you don't, because you still D3 damage, and you still have to do the 4 up on the vortex.
But you don't have to do it on the first turn. Then you
don't
have to take first turn.
You don't. But the problem is, if you don't do that, they have a chance at killing the chemist. And if they're onto it, and they have ways to do it, you might never get that spell off. For instance, if it was me and you were playing my host, you'd have 60 shots into a chemist turn 1 with a teleport to kill him. Sentinels will kill him, Techless will kill him, Croak will kill him, Crawlers will kill him. People will come after that chemist if you give the turn away. But maybe not. But that's certainly one way, and I'm sure you could have great success with that. The reason me and Richie, I think, favour the squadron, we like to kid ourselves in thinking we can play 5 turns of clever Warhammer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're playing objectives. I'm not just alphaing you. I'm doing lots of clever things that make me feel really clever, and then I win the game at the end on scenario. And you've still got loads of bits left, but I've done enough. I think that's more of a rewarding game.
Yeah.
I think against certain armies, you need to have a plan B. And the problem with the Vortex list is it does have a plan B, but the plan is still the same. It's just when you execute it. The Vortex is still coming out. The army still wants to hit your key things with it. It wants to create a kill zone around that Vortex. And your opponent knows that. Whereas I think with a more varied list, it doesn't do as much damage, but it does play loads of different parts of the map at the same time on the board. It doesn't need to be as concentrated as a Vortex list. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But that's the route we've been going. That's the games we've played. We're on, Richie was quite big. He's convinced me on the Engine Masters with the harnesses because the healing does matter. And they catch people out with the hammer attacks, I think. And the Gaze command trait where you give him +2 shots. And he does 3 shots, 3s, -1 D3. It's a bit of extra poke.
Range. Yeah.
So that's the way you can go. And I think getting mileage out of your Arcanauts is another one that's I think a lot of Kharadron players don't do. They see them as attacks. They don't like them. They're 90 points. The 9-inch pistols don't really do anything when you fly high. So it's like, what do you do with this unit? But really, they are, in the attack squadron, they are how you win the game. They're the unit to kill if you're an opponent because they're going to get on an objective. They're going to stand on it. They get buffs of being near it. They're a 4-up save, right? So and they can re-roll with the gold in that key turn. And they're okay. They can re-roll the battleship tests as well. So all of a sudden they're braver. Yes, it's an issue, but if they get a chip D3 damage on them, and let's say you lose 2 lads, you're probably still hanging around. And they can get back in the boat, and then it can fly high, etc. So I don't know. They're not using them more. I think is what we've been trying to do, and how because the Thunderers are really cool. I'm not convinced on the Riggers and Wardens in that style of list. I think they're much better in the Vortex list because they hitch and they can come down and do additional damage, and you can give them bigger guns and all that stuff. So, yeah, there's those. That's the thought of the list. You know, you either go the low drop Vortex, or you go 6-7 drop. You can have a null deploy, and in some games you will have the choice. Some games you will have the choice.
So, are you always playing Zilflin?
Yeah, experimented with. We've gone with Mornar. I'm probably more into Mornar than Richie is. But the problem with Zilfin is the Zilfin move is such a great tool at any point in the game that it can win you the game on its own. To be able to move in the hero phase, whether it's because you can still auto run 6 with Zilfins. In the hero phase, I can still run that boat. I don't have to fly high if it's not ideal. Because a lot of people think, oh, you've got to fly high. But you can just, because you fly, you run over the top of a unit into back objective. Then it's now your movement phase.
Restrictions.
Yeah. Now, 10 Thunderers just drop out in your movement phase. And they can then be 6 away? Or 3 from a garrison? Whatever it is. I think it's 3 away. Within 6 of the boat. And they can unload into that 10-man unit on the back objective. Charge. Yeah. Finish them off with their little re-rolls. And the birds pecking at them. And then that can get you 4 points on a back objective. You know, and that can be massive. Because now all of a sudden you turn the army around, the opponent, because he's got to come and deal with it. And when you've got an Ironclad sat there as well, it's quite good. So yeah, it's a big deal. I think, but that trumps Mornar because a lot of people talk about the staff, the glaive staff of Mornar, and yes, it's very good, but it's within 12.
So what does the staff do? Just for people who might not know.
Anybody that's within 12 in the start combat charge phase, you can pick them. You halve the charge.
Yeah. So
for instance, if you're a teleport unit and you're 9 away, very difficult to charge the boat. Because you can't, can you? Because you're 9 away and half.
I say very difficult or impossible.
Yeah. Well, because some people have buffs, don't they, to charge? It's like if you're Gav's like, what is that little stick you're waving at me? Well, come on, lads, let's go.
Or your Marauders that just go whatever, like the fastest charges in the world.
So it's very difficult, but some units can do it. But outside of that, and the reason why I think Zilfin also trumps is because the frigate's a battle line. Yeah. So you're not locked in like you are with Mornar, where you have to take 3 units, at least a couple of Arcanauts, or depending on who your general is, some Riggers or Wardens, because that kind of locks you into a 190-point hero you don't really want to take, because he's so expensive. Whereas you really want to be taking the cheaper heroes like a Chemist, chuck him in a boat, and have your boats be battle line, because that gives you freedom in terms of the very few points you have on bodies to spend them on other things that you want your army to do. And I think Zilfin has both of those keys. I also do like, is it Urbaz? One has a gun hauler battle line.
Yeah.
For the same reason, because you can put all your little heroes in a gun hauler. I think Tom, has Morsey been doing this?
You need to have you need to take the engine work, don't you? To do that?
Yes. So you're probably going to run it in an Iron Sky command battalion, or the one that has a gun hauler in, whichever that is. You get your extra engine work. That goes on your gun hauler. It's your little battle line unit as well. Because another thing that when me and Richie do it with KO is when you construct lists, all these extra bonus points you can score on the scenarios now in the Jones Handbook, they come into effect because they really matter for KO. Because if you can get your behemoths on like focal points on those objectives like an Ironclad, those additional bonus points might actually mean I don't need to push the middle of that game. You know, I can put my opponent under pressure.
Yeah, what's your take though on because obviously, like, if you're a behemoth and you become a battle line unit, are you still a behemoth?
So
because there's an FAQ for a couple books that say
and more tribes,
but there isn't.
But they mention the unit specifically.
But there isn't.
Yeah, but they mention
KO, is there?
No, there isn't one. So
you're saying they're both.
So we've been playing it as one.
Right. Is it your choice or it's battle line?
Well, we've been doing it as a house rule as one, but because the 2 FAQs specifically mention those units, they don't mention behemoths in general. They mention the units.
Yeah.
I think you'd have to apply that it scores double. It's probably one for the studio team to look at to see how they want to rule it. But ultimately, it's hard. We've been playing it as one. So if you battle line, you battle line. and if you're an Ironclad, you're a Behemoth, and that's it. Like that's how we've been doing it. But I think
that's
you might have a
unfair
grey
in how I would play it, because obviously convention dictates that when those FAQs come out, there wasn't this issue with KO, so they weren't going to be mentioned. So
no, of course, and when KO came out, the General's Handbook wasn't out, so it's probably something that I'm sure the studio team will address it. But for right now, I'm playing as that. Frigate's a battle line, and we always play it clad as a Behemoth, and that's it. Like, just for the simplicity of scoring. Because if you start doubling up on keywords, which if that's the way the studio team want to rule it, that's fine. But I think if you start, the score gets a bit silly then, because now you're double scoring on everything, and because the boat's quite a big base, you can fit it with multiple objectives, and I don't think that's the intention. So, but we'll see. That's how we're playing it currently, and I think at an event as well, that's how I would play it. If I was at an event and there wasn't a ruling, which I'm sure there would be. I'm sure TO would rule it the same way, but I would still just play it as one, because I think that's you battle line, aren't you?
Yeah, that's how I'd play it. So.
If you battle line, you are battle line. Like that's full stop.
Yeah, but it's whether or not you're a Behemoth as well, right?
Yeah,
because they're not mutually exclusive, are they? Because you're going to be a leader.
No, I know. But that's the way we've been playing it anyway.
It caused me a massive head scratch when I was trying to work it out, and I was like, I don't know.
But we'll see. I'm sure it'll be addressed.
Yeah. So you're KO painted, or you're working on them, or where are you at with them?
So this time, I've actually been pestering Terry. I wanted to use creams. I wanted to use creams and blues and stuff. I like a bit like you, Russ, with when I saw your Mornar, when you posted a pic about a year ago when you went to your event with your Zilfin.
Mate, that was more than a year ago. Like 2 years ago.
I really like the creams, and I like the creams on the Barrett Mornar Steam in the book.
Mm-hmm. So casually flashing the special edition book.
I have the special. I buy every book in special edition because I like having them all. Because of match. Once you do the first one, I don't know if anyone else is like this. It would trigger me if there was white ones in between. They've all got to be black now. They've all got to be black.
I had the problem with the end times, isn't it? So
yeah. Like I buy them from I don't even play because I want to read the book and I know the rules. Like Seraphon, I've got the collector's edition of Seraphon. I'll never play Seraphon, which is not for me. But I've got the £50 book on my shelf just sat there. But anyway, here's my little tester. I've started doing him.
Yeah, that's cool.
You probably can't see the highlights at the minute, but he's all highlighted.
Make it out the colour scheme. It's
all highlighted and done.
It's basically on our colours, right?
Yeah,
post a picture in the general, James, when you get a chance. Like, I'm sure everyone would like to see your hobby, so if you get a chance, post it in the general chat.
I'm gonna, because with this Kharadron Overlords army, I thought I wanted it to be my pinnacle hobby army. And I know that sounds mad, but so what I've done is I went to the core rulebook, the big AOS book that I think no one's ever read, but it is in the Soul Wars box. I went to Gur, and Gur has the big heart marshlands in the middle, which has a big description on it as well and stuff. And I've got some excess bone split models. So I thought, why not set? And I read the Iron Sky novel, the Kharadron Overlords book.
Yeah, I've listened to that. It's like a small iron armor, isn't it?
So when they find the wreckage that the ghouls have set as a trap, yeah? And they cite the code and they say, whenever you discover a Kharadron Overlord's vessel, it's your obligation to return it back for scrap or retrieve it and take it home. So my KO army is an expedition sent to Gur to retrieve Barrett Nar, a failed expedition. So one of my frigates is going to be retrieving a gun hauler, a bit Star Wars Yoda-esque out of the slime pool, like a marsh pool. The other frigate's going to have the Ironclad's going to have little pieces of like a rogue idol that they've skyhooked and they're pulling up onto the ship. So he's been taking pieces onto the ship. I'm going to have my other little frigate is going to be recovering the wreckage of another frigate. Little bone splitter bodies laid everywhere, and then I'm going to go to a bigger display board, which when they go on, it'll be all marshland themed with loads of bones, dead bone splitters and all that kind of stuff around. Because obviously a battle happened.
This isn't like an ode to I'm upset about the rogue idol points change, so I've just put the army in a bin and built a Kharadron army on top of it.
Well, no, I do have 2 rogue idols though, and now I probably only run 1. No, I think it's probably more that I should have been much quicker with my hobby. Not that the points changes don't really affect my. I forget what the host is called now. The ones that ignore the ethereal save and that the Dragfoot doesn't really affect my nick. But I know that some people obviously felt the points increases, and I did feedback at the time that removing it from allies probably is tough, isn't it, for some people that have bought one for an ally?
Yeah.
But
Lauren's quite passionate about this.
Yeah, but also the shoes.
Bullshit.
Yeah, well, they probably felt that it was. You have to remember, it's all done for balance. With the best intentions. So, so I'll use a Riddle for that, and I'll use the rest of the Bone Splitters all on the basis, and hopefully it will look really good.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Mate, your painting's going on leaps and bounds. Like every time I see your army, like when I played against your ogre army recently, I was super impressed by how you'd improved as a painter. And every time I see an army that you've done, you've definitely stepped up your game. You need to sort out. You need to like black rim those Tzeentch, but like otherwise, it's
My Kharadron will have black rims. I'm just going to say that. I love my gold rims on the Tzeentch, though. I know there's a lot of hate for it.
Just let everyone feed the hate, and then just like embrace it.
Everyone tells me
it's like making a really nice dinner, and then putting it on,
and then taking a poo on it.
Yeah, I had someone in the club was like, "I love your Tzeentch army, but I can't look at it because those rims offend me." And I was like, "Okay."
And you're like,
That's what I think you, wasn't it?
Did you basically say that the Tzeentch army should offend you, so it's okay? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I was surprised. I was like, "That's what offends you about my duplicitous host list." Okay.
Double down on it. Just double down on it. That's what I'd just be like, nah, fuck you. I'm using it.
Put glitter on the rims as well.
Yeah.
Little glossy rhinestone.
Yeah, gloss it as well, dude. Like really lean into it. Like gloss varnish it as well. Yeah.
I've got other models that I've got the Changeling. I love Be'lakor. I've got obviously some Screamers I've done that bring more variation to the model of the army. But yeah, it is just a pink sword for the minute. So, but yeah, that's with the Kharadron. And also, I play games every week with Richie, where unfortunately we can't both use Kharadron, and because he's got his army fully ready, it's usually predominantly Richie playing it. So Richie does a lot of the science as well, which we discussed, but he puts a lot of it into practice. So I think he's gone through some trials and tribulations that have mentally damaged him. It's very nerve-wracking playing Kharadron Overlords, and you have to. I do think you have to be able to cope with losing those priority rolls, like mentally.
Yeah.
Because if it happens all weekend, you're going to be like, oh, God, this is, really rough. This isn't even... It's too stressful to think about priority rolls rather than just playing the game.
So when you say about the priority roll, do you mean that you need a double, or you mean that it's...
Sometimes
you just need to not lose one.
Yeah, so with KO, the way me and Richie play is you always play KO so that you can lose the double. Yeah? So you shouldn't be able to be in charge range. You shouldn't be taking too much damage. The problem is when you're forced into a position where either for objective scoring or your opponent makes you go first turn one, you might have to do some decisions or some choices that compromise that, and then you're at the risk of a roll-off, which can hurt. But over the course of a weekend, you will, I think an average in one game, isn't it, is you should win 2 priority rolls on average. I think that's a bit skewed by who goes first and second, but on average. So you play 5 games, you're going to lose upwards of 10 priority rolls. So you just need to be ready that when it happens, you don't still go, because you see a lot of KO players go all in with the Vortex and then they lose the roll off and go, oh, I've lost now. I've lost. And I'm like, yeah, but that's probably not going to be a healthy weekend because you're going to come away from that event hating your army.
Yeah,
it's a bit like the old Zilfin, though, wasn't it? When you did the clown car drop, where it was like, if they then doubled you back and you didn't have an impactful first, that was game over. And that's what I was trying to say to Richie, that I think that you almost want to do that patient, slowly catchy monkey, but at the same time you've got the added pressure of the objective scoring getting away from you. So you've got to be like, I need to be patient, but at the same time, I need to be aggressive to ensure I don't get so far behind. And you probably find that if you lose the priority roll between 3 and 4 or 2 and 3, it's massive.
Well, it was really interesting listening to you earlier talk about Richie's Sylvaneth. Because I think the difference between me and Richie is Richie's a much more methodical, calculated player. Yeah, he's a smarter player. He's He likes the synergies. And when you play with the Sylvaneth, you're used to playing with the lead, and it's about is keeping that lead once you get it. With KO, you're playing behind all the time. You have to be happy to be behind early because you're going to win 4 and 5. Yeah, you need to scoot, shoot, mop up, and then you close in for the kill 4 and 5. Yeah, and you predominantly win your games from turn 5, which is not really how it used to be. Zilfin, like you said, you come down, I'll take half your army off on the right side. Even if you win the roll off, you can't possibly get to me because they're over on the left, and then I just mop that up and have what? Because you've got no models. And which is a very different way to play this new KO. You can still play like that with the Vortex list, but it's still different. You're not going to have the shooting with the chemist buff, all that kind of stuff. So you can still play that way, but it's a very different mindset with KO now, I think. With KO now, you're pretty much always behind on the mission, unless you're comfortable enough to come into the middle or on those back objectives. Because you always have your home objectives, but there's so much in the game now that can come after 10 Arcanauts. And that's where I think Aether Wings come into the game more for KO because they get the game going. You can push 3 Aether Wings into that middle objective on focal points if they give you the first turn. That's 2 points in the bag. You can use your Aether Wings to zone out a charge on your Arcanauts on the objective. Stuff like that. You can leave 10. You can leave 10 on the back of an objective, like Richard did against me the other day, with a frigate behind them ready to pick them up in the battalion and take them off. But what that stops is 10 models charging your Aether Wings and just robbing your objective. You've got 13 on there now, so even if you lose the birds, you tend to protect him. So there's lots of things you can do, but I think you just have to be prepared to play from behind. And I think where me and Richie differ is I'm much more happy to react or recover from mistakes, do that kind of stuff. Richie, I think, probably beats himself up a little bit about it because he feels he should have seen it, which we joke about all the time. But you can't. One thing we think with Kharadron is it's such a high, and I know it sounds silly, but it's such a high, hard level army to play. So if one domino falls and goes wrong, it can literally have a knock-on effect through your whole army. Your game plan can end because somebody got a charge off you didn't think they could make. And all of a sudden now you're like, oh my God, this is going to be bad. Like, you're going to have to go back to the barracks and say, look, not all the lads came home, and then start paying fines on the charter, and everyone's going to give you one of those little badges. You get your own badge of shame. Yeah. So they know that they won't sign up for expeditions with you because you suck. Like, that's what's going to happen.
All I'm hearing now is that we need to get you a badge of shame.
Well, that's it. It's the barrack thing, isn't it? If you wear an orange badge as an admiral, it means you've had failed expeditions. Which I think is a nod to the... And I never played War Fantasy Battle, but if you used to have orange hair, it was a dwarven colour of shame.
Yes, the Slayers.
So that's where I think that's where that comes from. So when I read that, I didn't think anything of it until someone told me about Fantasy Battle Slayers the other day, and I was like, oh yeah.
Makes sense.
But yeah, so
he loves painting orange. It's the colour of shame.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm still waiting for Terry's orange Stormcast army.
Got one here.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, that's one model.
Yeah, you've always got one model, Terry. You've always got one. I want to see a unit of Liberators in orange painted.
I do actually have them somewhere.
Sure.
Let me get them out for you in a minute.
But I think that's, if you're playing KO now, I think that's the mindset. And I also think you also have to be, and I know, again, this sounds silly, but you have to be happy with, sometimes missions just will go against you. Scorched Earth, the D3 burn, better part of Valor, you might lose your battle line, you might have to bring your frigates back to protect them from being burned, you have to drop off your engine master to stop them burning them, stuff like that. It can go wrong, and you can't always enact the plan you want to enact. So some missions, but I always think thematically, that's like an expedition just going wrong. And KO is an army that if someone ever 5-0s at a big event, amazing achievement. But even the kind of players that... and this happens a lot in AOS, I think. People don't acknowledge... When you go 3-1 with an army like KO, 3-2, that's still a really good weekend. Those players, you should be like, it's still really good. Because it's such a hard army to play.
You're saying that because you're playing them. You're like, they're so hard to use.
No, they are, though. They are.
It's like the Daughters players who've just seen the stat and they're going, oh, I'm the underdog.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a good player if I win with them.
Daughters players know that's a lot of malarkey. I don't think that's... I think a lot of Daughters of Cain players stopped playing them after the 2 years. They've been a while now, the Daughters of Cain, it's not... But those stats were super interesting from JP, as always, because I think his stats are always good. But yeah, it's one of those. I think you have to be mentally, because a lot can happen at an event, or when you're playing your own army. You put hours into your army.
Any army, any tournament, you've got to keep your mental headspace in a good spot.
Or a lot of armies have abilities or models where that you can recover.
Yeah, well, some you don't need to
Yeah.
think, and they're just that good and broken that you don't need to worry.
Well, look, if you take 100 skeletons...
So should we talk about Tzeentch? I mean, is it...
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want to?
I'm winding you up. Well,
How do you take apart Tzeentch? Come on, let's go through
I'm
that
interested
then, James.
in the Tzeentch list you're playing and what's in it.
Yeah. Talk us through it.
Why... do you have a dilemma when you're like, I love KO, they're the army for me, but I want to win, so I'm going to play my Tzeentch?
No, because I feel I can win with KO. And I think a 4-on-1 with KO, I'd be made up with that. I know people think, oh no, you won't, you'll moan, but I'd be well happy with 4-on-1 because I love the rules on the game. The problem with Hosted Places is it is really good, and I do enjoy playing it, but the rules sometimes, like, your opponent is not having a good day.
No.
Especially when they can't retreat anything. You've tagged them all, and then Be'lakor stops the one unit that can move moving. You look at them and you're like, I'm sorry, but I'm not really. Because I want this to happen.
I've built the list around this doing it, so I'm not that sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, but Hosted Places, I think, more so than Internal Conflag, because I started with Internal Conflag, as did everyone. I think the balance changes help settle Conflag into more of a balanced space. You're going to get less heroes. If you want Flamers, you are going to get less heroes. And then you've got to decide, do I want more Exalted Flamers, which are 6 shots on their own, they can buff the other Flamers, or do I just go for 3 more Flamers? You have to think about it that way. There is I did a flirt with a while for having 30 Flamers in a bridge. Even Maudsley was like, that's a horrible list. And I was like, if Tom's saying that, bloody hell, I can't leave that.
If Tom's there going, that's a horrible list, I'm like...
Yeah, but then he sent me a picture of it. He bought 30 Flamers. So I was like,
that's how Tom plays the game though, right?
But so that's where I started. And I was finding that the problem I had was the 20 Book of Horrors was hard to maintain because people go after it straight away. They try and go after the 20 to reduce the +1 that they get to the shooting as well, so they can potentially be hit on 3s. People are very onto it, and battle shock protection is a big deal. I mean, you've only got 2 heroes. People can quite easily come after your heroes, and you risk your bird a lot to protect them. So it wasn't really. It was working, obviously, but it wasn't really that good. I switched to Hosted Places because I think so exactly. This comes from being friends with Richie. Obviously, is I wanted to play his mentality where you kill nothing, but I'm up all game on scenario. I'm basically doing the Sylvan F1 drop. With my Locust is my -1 to hit on my lads. I'll be on all the objectives turn 1 that I can be. You can't retreat from me, which is even more egregious. And I've got Be'lakor to further hammer home because I took all the Flamers out, and I was like, I don't need to be aggressive. I need to be a better anvil. So I feel Be'lakor, I played Richie yesterday or the day before, and I Be'lakor'd his Ironclad, which essentially won me the game because it meant he lost that whole turn of shooting, and my horrors were able to maintain an objective for long enough to score an additional 3 points on total commitment, which made a massive difference. Flamers don't really matter because they're a 5-up save and 2 wounds, so in Hosted Places, you're not really doing anything with them. And there's so much chip damage, crawlers, Teclas, Croak, whatever, that if players want to, they can come after them. Because now you can only teleport 1 unit, even if it's a 6, they're unsupported, they're not buffed, they're a 5-up save with 2 wounds. Your birds are nowhere near it to fall reality on them. It is a nice threat to have, obviously. You don't have to do it turn 1. But the longer you wait, you risk them dying. And people come off them really easily. Even Sentinels are in the game now. They would love to set some Flamers on fire. I don't know if the Flamers would notice, but the problem was with Flamers is those models are some of my least favourite models I've ever painted. And I had to paint them to such a level, and now I'm not going to use them. So that just infuriates me even further. But I suppose I could summon them, sure. And another thing with Hosted Places is I was finding with Conflag, I wasn't getting enough fate points, for summoning. Because I only had a bird and a fate skimmer. Yeah. So now in Hosted Places, I've got a lot more casts with more heroes. Because I'm taking heroes over Flamers, right? So now it's a lot more... I can summon 10 horrors turn 3, for instance, now, instead of before it was turn 4 or 5. And that's if your heroes are alive, because you can only summon from the heroes. And people forget, if you spit 10 pinks back on that home objective, you can teleport the previous change host unit off them, freeze them up. Now, obviously, the summoned unit can't teleport, but it still has no retreat. So there's a lot of useful tools in Hosted Places. makes you feel clever. If you have a really good game, it's one of those lists. But I'm trying to get that mentality, trying to get better at, because I like to play lots of different lists and improve as playing. So I like to play and understand that mindset of objective-based armies that don't really want to be fighting. They want to get the objectives and win. Like Anvil Horde style armies, but not just necessarily Horde armies. Some armies are, because I'm so used to playing Deepkin, KO. I'm a very aggressive player. I like damage. I like charging. I like killing stuff. So it's one of those.
Yeah, it's a different mindset totally. So one of the things, like me and you are very similar players. Like I don't like just being like, I want to be killing my opponent and scoring the objectives. I don't want to be like, here's a wall of shit. I know I win the game by 2 objectives. Like, that's not, and it's a very viable tactic. And like Rich has made a career out of it, hasn't he? Like, just being like, here's a load of stuff you have to churn through. I've won the game by 3 points on the objectives because I've mapped it out from turn 2.
It's one of those things where it's hard as an opponent. So like when you play somebody with that style, you're comfortable with that style. Like say like Richie, so he's comfortable with that style. When you push it to your opponent and say, I'm up by 8 and you can't get on these objectives, what are you going to do? Some people don't know how to unlock the puzzle. They're much more used to being the aggressor and saying, can you withstand my aggression? And sometimes the answer is yes, and they'll lose. But it's also, if you're not used to playing against that style, you're like, oh, okay. Because you sort of have to, with those kind of armies, you have to unlock synergies, you have to kill various things to sort of take away all the buffs. A bit like Fire Slayers. You've got to know the heroes to target, the distances they can be, those kind of things. And it becomes a different sort of style to learn to play against. But I see Dan's in the chat. Dan, I can always come on Priority Roll and talk about our Shires game that ended in... I don't think me and Dan knew what was going on at the end. There's so many people watching. I was like, oh, bloody hell. Like, we've got the result.
Let's not tangent into Blood Bowl and Hobbit. Come on, let's keep on top.
Yeah, you're going to tangent off now, and it's like...
Let's not do a troke.
But I think that's with the host. But Kharadron Overlords, I really do think... I know a lot of people are big onto them because of the frigate point drops. And they're thinking there's a whole interactive shooting mech coming. What I would implore people to really think about, when you see a Kharadron Overlord on the other side of the table to you, think about how you can bait them in, catch them, charge them. Don't forget you can target people in boats. The amount of people that just think because you're in a boat, they don't ever try and target you. But yeah, you might just want to hit.
Yeah.
That's the biggest bomb dropped in this entire chat that people probably don't realise.
Yeah, but they don't, because they just shoot the boat. And I'm like, why would you shoot the boat on a 3-up re-rolling when you can just shoot the guys inside?
The characters, yeah.
You've still got to take a battle shot test. And if I've used gold, I'm already -1 bravery. So even if you just kill one lad, I'm -2 already. And I'm bravery 7. So it does make a difference. And usually it's really easy to do if you've got spells. I know it's easy to say when you're on, you're further away, but someone like Teclis could just go, right, my shooting attack plus Avlanor's shooting attack into those Thunderers in that boat, and you'll jump out and run off like cowards. No one will talk about it because they're dwarves.
It's really funny that, like, a unit of Kharadron, if you think about it, they're in a boat, right? They're being
peeking
shot,
out the portholes,
and then they go, "Fuck this, I'm off." They jump out the boat into the open, like in midair, and they just start running away. You're like, hang on a minute, how's that work?
And your master's like, where are they going? But yeah, it's thematically, it doesn't make any sense. You see this little rope come down, and you're like, where are they going?
So I didn't realise you could shoot the crew. So let's say they're hit by like a template style weapon, like Plague Wind, and you put the line through the boat.
Oh, Terry, it hits everything in the boat.
Oh, it does hit everything in the boat. Okay.
Yeah.
So Richie played Paul Scott, who works at Just Play, and he had the Thrice Fold, and the Super Beam hit the whole army. Every boat, every unit, everything for 3d3.
That sounds
same
fun.
with like Teclis' spell in it. It's like hit everything within 18 inches. At that point,
it is
that's
absolutely
everything.
horrific. Like that's another thing that makes KO hard to deal with the current meta, because yes, of course, like you can shoot Teclis off, but my God, if he gets that spell off, your lads are going to get burned. And the boat, everything's getting hit, like everything. And if you lose your 2 Endering Masters, it's going to get real fast because you're going to have to take battle shot tests. Your boats can't fly high. All of a sudden, you just look a bit silly, stood in the middle of the war going, oh dear, can't even heal.
I guess Ember spells are a bit of a pain in the ass that do the stuff that hit everything within a certain range because they hit everything, right?
Yeah. If you hit the base of the boat, it's because it's a garrison. Anything in that garrison is hit. It's all one model, essentially.
Have you had any thoughts about utilising the fact you can fight in melee from the boat as a garrison. And
yes, so that's another reason for the Engine Master with the hammer. 3 attacks, 3 threes, -1, and if he hits it on 6, it's 3 flat damage. So that's a bit of poke that people don't realise when they charge the boat. Obviously, you drop your mines. The other one is the Thunderers. So the Thunderers don't get their rerolls in the garrison, but because you're within 3, they can hop out in your movement phase, stay within 3, just be holding within 6 of the boat, and now they can fight in your turn combat phase. Again, you get the rerolls, so they help mop up as well. It's hard because the real combat units are obviously the riggers and the wardens, and they're usually on the outside, so they get shot or charged themselves. But yeah, it's one of those. It's hard with combat. I think combat is a tough ask because you're low bravery. You've got 1 attack on the riggers. The pikes on the wardens are good, but you don't get enough of them to justify a combat unit. Although, if you're going to do that, I have written lists with like 9 to 12 riggers in Mornar with the strike first. When you having that one blob, but the problem with that is it can't hinge. So because it's Mornar, I'm literally running turn 118. To get those pistol shots. You win the roll off, and then you can charge and strike first. If you lose the roll off in your charge, you can still strike first, but obviously you're susceptible to your opponent doing other damage and stuff to negate that. So there's been some play around that because I really want to use the new model as well, who's really cool. The Engine Master.
Do you not think he's amazing with the bomblets and stuff?
He can be. The bomblets are obviously very good, like no question. He can be, but it's 190 points.
But he's a big feature on my list. Like I have him and the engine rigger block, like as my combat bit of fun.
And it is, and I think to that point, there is no one way to go. Like you could be right in running that and having great success with relying less on your shooting. Because I played Thricefold with my KO and -4 to hit, you've got no chance. Like if I played Terry's Thricefold and he's got the Blight Lord there, whacking on his box of Plague Bearers, you never win that game.
Just Plague Bearers with Geminids. That's
-3, isn't it? You never win that game. So, so you can't. But combat, you could. Those riggers could go in and go right, get amongst the flies, ignore the smell because you've got your helmet on, and just start cutting. Sometimes, like Lawrence Fishburne said in John Wick, you've got to cut a motherfucker. Yeah, and that's what the riggers do. You've got to put the guns down, and you've got to go in and get up close and personal. So I think. There's an element to that. My only issue is, would I rather have 10 Arcanauts and an Engine Master instead? Who still has 3 shooting attacks at -1 D3, still has 3 attacks, because he also helps the boat become a bit more of a combat piece. I can charge a boat in, knowing that, okay, I've got the Blade Bow attacks, which, unless you don't see the boxes coming from above, you're not going to get hit by. But he can actually hit you with his hammer. That's a real attack. And it can be that little difference. When something's on 1 wound and your CAD's not quite shot it off, and you're a bit gutted because you got all cocky saying you were gonna, and then you haven't. You've got to go in and sort of hit it on the head.
I never go into a game being all cocky and bullshit like you do.
Yeah.
No, but Kharadron players like they're in the shooting phase going, well, that's all dead, isn't it? Because I'm going to shoot it off right now.
Is this where you try and talk the game out rather than roll the dice? You go, well, I'm obviously going to kill it all, so you'll just call it that.
No, but
then they go, oh yeah, you're right. It's mind games. But then you go, actually, just roll the dice. Oh, you only killed like 2 things. Why are you trying to talk?
There's always
God damn it! Why did you make me play the game? No, I'm kidding.
With the realization, you haven't shot anything off, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, because you're like, if I say it's going to happen, they'll just believe me, and then we don't have to take the risk of it not happening. Yeah,
because you're like, well, I use 2 command points, so I reroll ones on everything. I reroll ones against flyers, and I use my gold to reroll one. What's the problem? And they're like, oh yeah, okay.
It's a bit like when we played, and I said, don't charge Arcan, it's a trap. And you were like, it's a trap. Oh, don't go into the Mortis Engine Necromancer. It's a trap. Oh, I don't know. It is a trap, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then what happened?
Well, I felt bad on that game because I played Robbo, Matt Robinson, the game before with his Beast Claw, and we finished after like half an hour because I just charged him, got heals and killed him.
I think you need to rewind. What happened? Like, not change the subject. What happened in our game? What happened?
I'm getting to that. But then I drank far too much in the 2-hour period, and I got to the table.
Right.
I was
blame alcohol.
No, but I was talking at you for about half an hour, I think, and you were clearly sat there like, "Can you just deploy your models, please?" Like the round started. I was talking at you about Nintendo Switch and everything because I was drunk.
I was trying to understand what an aimbow was, and you were explaining an aimbow. Because I had Diablo 3 on the Switch.
Amiibo.
I don't even know the word.
And then we got to I think it was turn 2. And I even said to you before it started, I was like, I know that's bait. I'm going to charge it anyway because I'm going to kill it, obviously, eels. I did it, obviously.
Yeah.
Got battered, but I was up on the score with 2 models left at the end of time. And you could tell Russ looked at me. I wasn't sure if he was expecting me to go, so that's time. Dice down, sir. And then I was like, no, I've lost.
I can count the amount of times I've played people that are really slow, take loads of time, turn up a little bit drunk, and then at the end of it, they then go, well, we can't obviously play that 5-second turn. That means I lose. So
it's the only game, from memory, it's the only game where I've wasted 40 minutes at the start, just doing nothing, just talking.
It's so easy to do though, because you turn up, you start chatting, you just sort of set up, you go get a drink, you have to go to the toilet, you come back, it's 45 minutes gone.
But it's the way we all play at the club anyway. If I went back to the club and I was like, oh, I won at the end of time with 2 models, they'd all be like, what are you doing there? It's not something we really encourage. I know people think we just say that, but if anyone's ever played me, they know that there's no way I would ever win on turn 2 with time.
No, to be honest, I've had a lot of games with Richie where it goes to time because of the nature of what he's playing, and he's mapped that out and basically given me. I mean, we played on the stream, and it was like this game. It was like I was playing Legion of Grief, and I think he was playing Sylvaneth -1 to hit rubbish, and I was like, this is never going to finish. Not only have you got all the faff of getting on the stream and getting all the questions and being slowed down by that, but you've also got Richie on the other side of the table. So, Mr. Muffin.
I've never had that issue because I always play super aggressive armies, right? So I've either killed you within an hour and a half, or things are going wrong for me. So I've never really had that issue. At the Shires, I did get to turn 4 and 5 more before I'd won, before I'd killed my opponent, because of the nature of the army. But I was still well within time. I think, yes, that's probably the only game I've ever had to do that. But anyway, I'd lost. I had 2 models. You literally killed my army in a turn and a half.
I know, it's amazing. Spirit.
So that sucked. But other than that,
not for me.
But then you went on to win. Then you went on to win. So I was made up for you in that sense because I could start saying stuff like, "Well, I only lost to the guy who won it." So
exactly.
What's the problem?
Exactly.
No, it's really good. And the same with Curry when I lost Element. I think he was, Curry's quite bullish, isn't he, when he plays? And I think he was expecting me to
not at all.
Not bad.
What are you talking about?
I think he was expecting me to say oh, I lost because of dice or whatever. And I lost to Curry at Brotherhood, more in a team environment more so. And I just said to him, I was like, no, you played better than me. I deserve to win. I don't really have any. When I lose, you should always
don't ever give him any reason to believe his own
right. No. I lost because of bad decisions I made. It was nothing to do with.
Yeah, but don't say it because he was
that's
good.
Better then.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, don't say.
If you say you only lost because you were an idiot, that's fine. But don't say that.
No.
Because if you say nice things to Ben, he starts to get up in himself, and then he just projects that down on you, and you're just like, oh god.
If he still runs the same list, I mean.
Yeah,
he's watching.
It's still
Actually watching it.
That's why I'm giving him grief.
Oh, right, okay. Hi, Ben.
Yeah, but no. So we've talked a lot about the houses, about play and all the rest of it. Where do you think meta wise? There's a lot of this stuff out there like S tier, A tier. We like League of Legends, so we've ripped this off. Yeah. What do you feel like factions? Do you feel that there is a massive tier gap? Do you think something is cream of the crop? And do you think that the meta has slowed down because of COVID, or do you think TTS has sped it up?
So I think with TTS, it's very easy to fall into the trap of this list is really good. And I'm like, sure, but do you own those models? 2, would you actually buy field that paint and field that army? And 3, who are you playing against? Are they trying out other lists as well and stuff? Are you playing it against real hard lists? I think TTS, because it's so flexible in what you can run and how you can play it, it creates a false perception of what can be good and not, which is
also what you would face. It's not real life, is it?
No, and also at the table, when your time constraints and you're looking at a table top down, you might make different decisions as to that on a PC screen. So it's a little bit different to play as well. Obviously, it still gives you great context for some units and how they operate. I think with the meta, though, I think it's getting what people have painted. It could be a Wild West for a little bit because everyone's painted something during lockdown. players that didn't necessarily have the time before, who might have been on an army they wanted to get off, or they just fancied a break or a change. And also, I think it's given a lot of players a bit of time to mentally refresh and not play any events and be like, actually, this weekend I'm just going to paint. I'm not going to spend all week writing lists, the hardest list I can for Saturday. I'm going to paint something and chill. And I think that might actually have a knock-on effect to armies people bring. They might be like, well, I'm really proud of this army.
Is good. I think that'll be really good for the meta. There's been I just speak for myself. Like I've not, everything at the start of this year was focused on ETC. And now obviously that didn't happen. And it's just been such a weight off the shoulders. And it's allowed me time to, mentally refresh and look at things from a different perspective. And it's just, I imagine there's a lot of people out there, you must be the same, without the pressure of Six Nations and stuff like that. You've then just gone, right, I can now, focus on what I want to do.
I was looking forward to my first ETC. I was ready. Yeah. But no, I think with the actual events themselves, I think when we get back to it, people haven't played the GHB a lot. They won't. The bonus scoring will catch people out in some missions. People will change their lists, I think, after seeing that and be more prepared for certain missions they don't expect to see in packs. Better Part of Valor was a mission that was in the bin, right? Essentially, in terms of tournament scene, no one wanted to play that. It basically let some armies just win more. Now, could that be a very popular mission because of the battle line requirement to control it?
No.
You don't think so? Well, it could be.
Only a deep is going to like this mission.
Oh, and a horror player. Come on.
A deep loads of evils. They're going to be like, oh, this is great. All my men are battle line. They're in your face. I've burnt everything on turn 2. I win. This is great. But
it makes you write this differently. Even me and Rich are do we need 2 or 3 heroes in a KO army? For leader bonus points.
I have been playing around with a Slaves to Darkness list with loads of Chaos Knights because I just think they're fast. They're all battle line. You can
the great home for a buff as well. Stat buffs on them. Yeah, and the models are really nice in the new Start Collecting. But I think those will be key factors. But I do think Lumineth are going to rise straight to the top. No one's played them before, and they have a lot of stuff that really hurts you if it catches you out. It doesn't just clip you; it really hurts. And I think once people get used to it, they'll be fine to play Lumineth. But playing Techless for the first time, he's going to have your pants down. If you play Sentinels for the first time and they shoot off an entire unit with a high roll, you think, oh my god, how am I ever going to beat these? But over time, I think people will identify weaknesses. It's still a great army, obviously, but there'll be some overreaction, I think, on Lumineth. And then I think it depends really,
doesn't it? You get that unknown spike in victory due to, I didn't know what that did.
Yeah, of course, and everyone will be on it, and I'm sure there'll be just massive outcry for
Christmas comp.
But then also because Seraphon never got to breathe, and a lot of people I know are complaining about.
They're lizards.
To be honest,
so we'll get to see them as well.
I'm really happy that they haven't had a chance to breathe because I just want to put my foot on the fat frog's throat until it stops breathing, and then I want to put it in the bin along with that battle tome.
I just want to steer him to his chair and be like, "What's up?"
Balance, Russ.
The big skyhook. But yeah, I think Seraphon are another one. Seraphon, Lumineth, because they've not had a chance to breathe, and Seraphon will catch loads of people out with their teleport shenanigans, and the fact that
with their entire bloody book.
So they're really good, and I think are people looking at Decimators? Les,
mate, I got them in my Skyborn Slayers, 10 of them.
If you're a Stormcast player with Gav right now, and you've got Decimators with KO in the boats, with horror splitting, with big groups of Sentinels, with huge amounts of skinks all over the place,
mate,
they're just some serious work.
The Decimators, I still stand by that. Admittedly, I played 2 games recently with Skyborn, and I've lost both of them. But the points drops in Stormcast have made, in my opinion, Protectors, for the monster hunting, and Decimators amazing. And for me, I've been taking them in Skyborn because you're 5 inches away and you charge on the first turn if you want to, or you keep them in the sky. It's Decimators are really good. It's only when you play against a wanky Tom Wolsey list, which is all boats, that you then don't benefit from the fact that they're Decimators. But it's put a screen in front of me. It's even with the Protectors, the amount of attacks that they're putting out yeah, again, I've been taking it with Celestial Vindicators. So you spend a command point and you increase the attacks. So your Decimators go in, they generate an attack per unit, per model in the unit. Spend a command point if they're within range of the hero, which they should be because that's where the Celestant is. So they get 4 attacks each because of the ranges. Spend a command point, 5 attacks each. There's not a lot that's gonna, you're rerolling 1s on the charge, you're hitting on 3s. So you're going in rerolling 1s with a million attacks. You're going to kill stuff.
Yeah. And when my brother charged Richie's boats with them, Richie's head fell off because of the amount of attacks they get.
Because no.
I'm just saying, there's interesting things out there that people just won't play because they think our Stormcasts suck. And if you're a Stormcast player who loves your army, maybe try and write a couple of lists. I still think you need Gav to deliver them outside of Skyborn Slayers, which kind of rules out the Anvil, Heldenhammer, because otherwise, if they come down and you fail that charge, you could just lose it for nothing. But then the Celestant Prime does that as well because he can change his charge. I think there's a lot of play. I know people tell me they're like the worst army in the game, but they're quite spicy in this meta. So it would not shock me if Stormcast got a few cheeky little results with some off-skew lists.
Mate, like I said, I know keep talking about this Skyborn Slayers list I've been running, but with the points drops, you get an additional character and a command point. It's in the list that was already quite like body heavy. I've got the Prime, I've got the Venator, I've got an Incantor, I've got a Celestant, I've got like 2 Judicators, I've got the Luckstone on the Venator because of the ability, so you do damage 9 when it goes through if you're lucky. You got 10 Protectors, 10 Decimators. It's like a 3 drop. You deploy 2 models on the table and just go like, cool, put your stuff where you like.
Yeah, so I would expect to see them as well. It would not shock me if they had a little bit of success. Obviously, they're not going to come down and charge into Hearthguard Berserkers, but little cheek of them. I think Fireslayers are in a unique spot because they were really, really good, and their army nobody enjoys playing against them because they're not really interactive or play with. But you can shoot all the heroes now. There's a lot of armies out there that come after your lads with the banner. So it'd be interesting to see if Fireslayer players persist because they are so susceptible to these Tekla spells. That Tekla spell goes off and you don't make your 4 up on that banner. Fireslayers so it'd be interesting. Black Kings, everyone's on them.
Yeah. I mean, even with 47, you take out all of the heroes in Fireslayers, don't you? And then it's just like, cool, like Hermdai don't matter because you're not going. All of the heroes are dead because most people these days are not running the Magma Draft, they're running the smaller, heroes.
The double battalion.
Yeah. It's
okay.
But that's another one. So yeah, there's a lot out there, I think, but it will be wide open, I think, and there'll be a lot of lists. People have had time to read books now.
Do you think you'll be at a distinct advantage because you've been playing over lockdown? Because you've got just playing those competitive players. Are you looking to come back for Storm and Podium, sweep it up?
The Just Play boys should come out of this and just absolutely clean house, really.
Well, we do anyway, Terry, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, here we go. Mate, don't feed the ego.
3-0, mate.
I don't know. We've been playing, so we're very fortuitous. But a lot of people have been playing on TTS as well, and a lot of people play a lot of Garden Hammer as well. So I think the only event I'm playing is the Just Play event in November. I think it's the only one going to go on this year, isn't it? Really, unless that gets cancelled, I don't know. So
maybe
there'll only be really one sample.
Yeah, that's true.
Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Interesting times. Well,
so we'll see.
I think what we'll do is we'll wrap up there. We'll be back at 8 o'clock with Oscar Lars to talk about some hobby-related Age of Sigmar. If you're on
looking
Twitch
forward to that,
and you've somehow stumbled on this channel with we're doing this because we were streaming from Discord, but we had some technical issues. But we're still there, Discord server. Check us out, all that kind of stuff. So, but thanks for coming on, James. It's always interesting to hear your take.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to see all your little faces. Haven't seen you in lockdown.
No, right.
Exactly. We might
still.
They're gone. So
I was gonna say it's funny thinking 6 months and Terry still hasn't bought a bulb for his room.
I know.
I was about to say we might let Terry out of his cupboard at some point, but
yeah, if anyone's going to be in a dingy hole, who would it be?
If I turn my main bedroom light on, I'll just have this yellowy glow in here, and it will look awful.
I just thought it was because all your bulbs go on like painting lamps, and that's really because you've always got a lamp on. You're always just like, I don't even need a lamp. I'm fine. I'm painting.
I don't know what's going on with Just Play, like whether or not we'll be able to pop up, but like it might be cool if me and Russ pop up. We could pop up for the day, just like have a mooch round. I'm not sure what the deal is. Obviously, social distancing and all that shenanigans. It'd be good to cover it. Maybe
come on up. Come on up. Because we'll go out for drinks afterwards. Because you're not allowed to be more than 6 people, are you? Unless you.
No.
But if you go into a bar, you can sit at different tables with people. I think that's okay. So, and who knows? By then we're probably in the second lockdown anyway.
Yeah, it won't matter with it. It'd just be cool. It'd be nice to maybe do it.
I'll worry about it the week before. That's my approach. I'm on a plane. I'll probably get COVID tonight on a plane. No, my luck.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thanks very much. And
on that morbid note, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Cheers, James.
But I have got Mario for the plane, so I'm all sorted.
All right. Thanks. And,
take care, buddy. Have a safe trip. See ya.